The body hit the floor before anyone in the room had time to blink. Amara Osei didn't see it happen. She heard it, a wet, heavy thud followed by 3 seconds of absolute silence, and then the screaming started. She spun around from the flyer table she'd been setting up outside Club Noir on the corner of 8th and Calloway, and watched as 2 men in suits dragged a third man out of the alley beside her, shoved him into the back of a black SUV, and peeled off into Chicago traffic like it was nothing. Like it was Tuesday. Because it was Tuesday. Her hands were shaking. She looked down at the stack of glossy pink flyers in her grip. Velvet Room, best hip-hop and R&B in the city, this Friday. She'd been paid $40 to distribute 500 of them by end of day. She had 412 left. She needed the money. She always needed the money. So she straightened up, took a breath, and went back to work. Excuse me, sir, Velvet Room this Friday, you'll love it. Most people took the flyers just to toss them. A few ignored her entirely. One man stopped, looked at the flyer, then looked at her like she was something he'd stepped in. She smiled anyway. Pride was a luxury she couldn't afford right now. She'd been doing this for 3 weeks, this particular job, anyway. Before this, it was double shifts at a diner in Southside, night stock at a pharmacy in Inglewood, and before that a year of pure suffocation watching her mother waste away in a hospital bed, while bills piled up so fast Amara had stopped opening envelopes. She dropped out of her social work graduate program 14 months ago with 1 semester left. Sometimes she thought about that. She tried not to. The black Mercedes came out of nowhere. It wasn't even going that fast. That was the thing that stunned her. She'd always assumed if she ever got hit by a car it would at least be moving quickly. But it was barely crawling through the congested stretch of Calloway Avenue when it rolled over the edge of the curb, clipped her folding table, and sent 412 fluorescent pink flyers exploding into the afternoon air like a confetti cannon at the world's worst party. Amara went down hard on one knee. Pain shot up through her leg and into her hip. For a moment, she just knelt there in the middle of the sidewalk, watching her flyers drift gently down to the ground like expensive snow. Then the anger arrived. She got to her feet and turned on the car. Are you serious right now? Watch where you're going. You just destroyed my whole setup. She smacked the hood with her open palm. Hello? Is someone in there or is this car just driving itself? The door opened. The man who stepped out looked like he'd been carved from something expensive and dangerous. Tall, clean-lined face, dark eyes sharp enough to cut through the afternoon haze. His suit was charcoal and immaculate. His expression was the most controlled thing she had ever seen on a human being, like someone had surgically removed every inconvenient emotion and sold them for parts. He looked at the flyers on the ground, then at her, then at his car. He hadn't even flinched. Behind him, 2 doors opened simultaneously. 2 large men in identical black suits stepped out and planted themselves like concrete pillars. From a nearby doorway, a woman in a cream blazer rushed forward, already bowing. Mr. Kwan, I'm so sorry. I'll have it handled immediately. Amara cut her off. He nearly ran me over. The woman, older, expensive jewelry at her collar, looked at Amara like she'd materialized from a different dimension. You need to collect your things and move. This is private property. It's a public sidewalk. It's managed territory. You don't have a vendor permit for this block. I'm handing out papers, not selling drugs. Amara spread her arms. What territory? This is Chicago. Something moved in the man's expression then. It wasn't quite amusement. It was closer to surprise, the way someone looks when they've reached for a door handle and found it unexpectedly warm. He held up one finger and Mrs. Park fell silent mid-sentence. He was looking at Amara, really looking at her, in a way that had nothing to do with the car or the flyers or the sidewalk. What's your name? He asked. His voice was low, unhurried, slightly accented. None of your business, Amara said. Are you going to apologize or not? A pause. Are you hurt? My knee is fine. My flyers are everywhere. I'll have them collected. I don't need your people to don't. She pointed at one of the suited men who had bent to retrieve a flyer. I've got it. She started gathering them herself, quickly, pride refusing to let her accept help from a man whose car had just knocked her down. She could feel him watching her. She tried to ignore it. She couldn't. When she straightened up with an armful of crumpled flyers, he was still standing there. He dismissed Mrs. Park with a look. The two security men had stepped back. "How much do they pay you for this?" he asked. "Why?" "I'm curious." $40 for 500 flyers. She lifted her chin. "Which I will now have to resort and recount, thanks to you." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I have a nightclub, Noir, 3 blocks from here. I need someone to handle social media, promotions, event coordination. The position pays $2,800 a week." Amara stared at him. "You're clearly not afraid to speak your mind," he continued. "You're also not afraid to work. Those are qualities I don't find easily." "You don't know anything about me." "I know you're standing on a public sidewalk in 40°, whether handing out flyers for someone else's club instead of yours. I know you didn't back down from my security team. And I know that in about 30 seconds, you're going to tell me this sounds too good to be true." He reached into his jacket, produced a business card, and held it out. "It's not." Amara read the card. Daniel Kwan. 1 line. No title, no tagline. "If you're interested, come to Noir tomorrow at noon. Ask for me." He turned to go. "I haven't said I'm interested," she called after him. He glanced back just once, something almost like a smile. "You're still holding the card." She was. That night in her 600-square-foot sublet in Logan Square, Amara sat on her bed with her laptop and searched his name. What she found made her set the computer down, stand up, walk to the kitchen, pour herself a glass of water, drink the whole thing, and then go back to the laptop and read it all again. Daniel Kwan, 31. Head of the Kwan family, one of the most deeply embedded Chinese-American crime organizations on the East Coast. They controlled import operations, high-end real estate, 3 legitimate restaurant chains, and at least 4 nightclubs that acted as fronts for money movement. He'd taken over at 27 after his father was shot dead in a power dispute with a rival syndicate from Detroit. In 4 years, he doubled their holdings, crushed 2 rival factions, and built a reputation so cold the street nickname wasn't even colorful. People just called him the Wall. Immovable, expressionless, untouchable. There was not a single romantic link to his name anywhere. Not a rumor, not a photograph with a woman at an event, nothing. Like that part of his life had been surgically removed along with everything else. Amara closed the laptop, opened it again, closed it. $2,800 a week. Her rent was 6 days overdue. She told herself not to go. She put the business card on the kitchen counter face down. She set her alarm for 7 in the morning so she could be first in line at the flyer distribution company for another assignment. At 11:40 the next morning, she was standing outside Club Noir. The place was something else in daylight, all dark glass and steel, understated in that particular way that costs a lot of money. A hostess met her at the door and walked her upstairs without a single question, which meant Daniel Kwan had told them to expect her, which meant he'd been confident she'd come, which irritated her more than she expected. His office overlooked the entire club floor. He was on the phone when she entered, speaking in rapid Mandarin, seated behind a desk that probably cost more than her car would have if she'd owned a car. He saw her and held up one finger. 1 minute. She used that minute to look around. The office was clean, obsessively so. No personal items except one small framed photograph she couldn't see clearly from this distance. Awards and licenses mounted on the wall in perfect alignment. A single glass of water on the desk. He ended the call and stood. "You came." "You said 2,800 a week," she said. "I'm practical, not foolish, but I have questions." He gestured to the chair across from his desk. She sat, so did he. "Is this job real?" "Yes." "Not a front for anything illegal." "The club is fully licensed, tax compliant, inspected regularly. What happens in other parts of my business doesn't touch this building." He held her gaze. "You would work for the club, nothing else." "Why me? You don't know me." "I told you yesterday. Instinct." "That's not a real answer." "It's the only one I have." He leaned back slightly. I've had 3 promotions managers in 2 years. All of them were qualified on paper. None of them had what you have. Which is what? You're not afraid to tell people no, and you're not afraid to tell people the truth. In this industry, that's rarer than you'd think. Amara looked at him for a long moment. He looked back, completely steady, like he could wait her out for hours and it wouldn't cost him anything. I have conditions, she said. A flicker of something, not quite surprise, but close. Go ahead. 1, I never touch anything illegal, not even paperwork that looks sideways at me. 2, if I find out this operation is being used for something criminal, I walk out the same day, no notice. 3, I want a written contract with HR standard terms. Legal, binding, notarized. Agreed. You didn't even pause. Because those are reasonable conditions. He extended his hand across the desk. My condition in return, absolute discretion. What you see and hear inside these walls stays here. And if there's ever a problem with staff, with customers, with anything, you come to me first. Not a friend, not the internet, me. She looked at his hand. There was a small scar on the back of it, pale and old. She wondered briefly about its origin and then reminded herself that wasn't her business. She shook his hand. We have a deal. His grip was firm and brief. Welcome to Noir, Amara. She blinked. I never told you my name. No, he said simply. You didn't. The first 2 weeks felt like drinking from a fire hose. Daniel set her up with a real office, 2 monitors, a company credit card for content creation expenses, and full access to every Noir account. She rebuilt their Instagram from scratch, new aesthetic, better captions, strategic hashtags. She launched a TikTok account, and within 10 days it had 30,000 followers. She reached out to every mid-tier influencer in Chicago with a nightlife following and negotiated appearance deals that cost a fraction of what the club had been paying for print advertising. Revenue on Friday and Saturday nights climbed 40% in the first week. Daniel said nothing about it directly, but she noticed that on the day the numbers came in, he nodded at her once from across the club floor. From Daniel Kwan, she was starting to understand. That was effusive praise. He watched her. She was aware of it without quite being able to catch him doing it. Whenever she looked up, he was looking somewhere else. But she felt it, that particular quality of attention, like being in a room with a very still, very alert animal. She was aware of him, too. She refused to examine that more closely. On a Wednesday morning in her 3rd week, she walked into his office without knocking, dropped a printed spreadsheet on his desk, and said, Your bar manager is skimming from inventory. This is a month of data. The variance in the premium spirits column is consistent with someone siphoning about $200 a week. He looked up from his laptop. She had interrupted a meeting. 2 men she didn't recognize were seated in chairs against the wall. I'll handle it, Daniel said. Obviously, I just wanted you to have the numbers. She noticed the men. Oh, sorry, I didn't see you had company. She nodded at them pleasantly. Hi, I'm Amara. Then she left. Behind her, she heard one of the men speak in Mandarin. She didn't understand the words. She heard Daniel's response clearly enough, though calm, flat, final. Whatever he said, the other man didn't push back. Later, the bar manager was quietly let go. No scene, no police, no drama. 2 days later, a new inventory system appeared across all 3 bar stations. It started with lunch. Week 4. Amara was eating at her desk. A sad container of rice and black beans she'd meal prepped on Sunday, when Daniel appeared in her office doorway with no announcement, looked at her food and said, Come upstairs. I'm eating. I can see that, he paused. Come eat upstairs. She followed him to a private dining room she hadn't known existed on the 3rd floor. A spread was already laid out, Chinese dishes, still steaming, arranged neatly across a low table. He'd had it ordered before he came to her door. You planned this, she said. I wanted to go over the event calendar for December. He sat. Eat. They ate. He explained each dish as she tried it, unhurried, watching her face when she tasted something new. She tried not to enjoy it. She enjoyed it enormously. The event calendar conversation was real. They spent 40 minutes on it, serious and productive. But somewhere between the second course and the third, the conversation turned. "You said you were in graduate school before this," Daniel said. She looked up. "You had me researched." "I research everyone who works for me." "What did you find?" "Social work, top of your program. You dropped out 14 months ago." A pause. "Your mother." Amara set down her chopsticks. She hadn't talked about her mother to anyone in 8 months. She'd found that if she didn't say it out loud, the grief stayed at a manageable distance, like weather on the other side of a window. "She was sick for 2 years," Amara said carefully. "By the end, there were enough hospital bills to bury a person twice over. I dropped out to work, and then she died anyway." She looked at the table. "So." A silence that didn't feel like awkwardness. More like Daniel giving the words room to exist. "My father was killed 4 years ago," he said. Not in response exactly, more like offering something in exchange. "I was 27. He'd built everything you see here from nothing, came over with $800 and a network of people who owed him favors. He was hard, sometimes cruel. He made enemies the way other men make friends." Another pause. One of them finally collected. Amara looked at him. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. We had a complicated relationship." His jaw tightened slightly, almost imperceptibly. "But he was my father." "And your mother." "Gone when I was 12. It's just been me and my younger sister since my father died. May." For the first time, his voice changed, something softened in it, the way a locked door looks different when it's opened just an inch. "She's the only person whose opinion I actually care about." "Does she work with you?" "Not in the way you're thinking. She's finishing her MBA. A very slight smile. "She's smarter than me. Don't tell her I said that." Amara laughed before she could stop herself. Daniel watched the laugh like it was something he'd never seen before and wanted to memorize. She noticed that. She filed it away and didn't know what to do with it. The days that followed had a shape to them she hadn't expected. She arrived at Noir every morning, and the building felt different than it had the first week, the way a place starts to feel once it knows you. Staff greeted her by name. The kitchen started sending up a coffee exactly the way she liked it at 9 every morning. She never found out who ordered it. The December events she'd coordinated sold out in 36 hours. Daniel was everywhere and nowhere. She'd catch glimpses of him across the floor, on his phone, in conversation with men she'd learned not to ask about. But he also materialized at her office door with the spreadsheets she needed before she'd asked for them. He remembered things she mentioned in passing, that she liked the music lower on Tuesday afternoons, that she'd said once the hallway lighting gave her a headache, and things would quietly change. She was falling for him. She knew it the way you know an incoming storm, not from the rain but from the pressure shift in the air, the way everything feels slightly more charged than usual. She also knew he was a criminal, a genuine, operational, no ambiguity about it crime lord. A man whose name made other powerful men step back. A man with a scar on his hand whose origin she still hadn't asked about. Her coworker Priya, who handled the VIP bookings and had approximately zero filter, had made it her personal mission to narrate Amara's situation back to her at every opportunity. "Your boss looked at you for 45 seconds while you were on the phone with the Callaway agency today," Priya announced one afternoon, dropping into Amara's visitor chair. 45, I counted. "He was probably watching the clock behind me," Amara said, not looking up from her laptop. "Amara, the clock is on the other wall." Maybe he was thinking about inventory. The man was not thinking about inventory. Priya pointed a finger at her. "He rescheduled a dinner with 2 other crime families. Yes, I hear things. Don't look at me like that, because it conflicted with the night you had the influencer event and he wanted to be on the floor." Amara went still for exactly half a second. Then she resumed typing. "I work for him," she said carefully. "And Napoleon worked for France. Doesn't mean he didn't have feelings." Priya stood, clearly satisfied with her own analogy. "I'm just saying, the man is not looking at you like your staff. He's looking at you like you're the only person in the building who is real." After Priya left, Amara sat in the quiet for a moment. She thought about the coffee that appeared at her desk every morning at 9. The way he'd appeared out of literally nowhere when a drunk customer in the VIP section had put his hand on her arm without permission. Daniel had been across the room, and then he wasn't, and the customer had gone very pale at whatever was said to him and left the building immediately. The way Daniel had looked at her afterward and asked, in a voice stripped of all its professional distance, "Are you okay?" Not, "Is there a situation I need to address?" Not, "Do we need to call security?" Just, "Are you okay?" Like that was the only variable that mattered. She also knew herself. She'd survived her mother's death without collapsing. She'd worked 3 jobs simultaneously without losing her sense of humor. She'd stood in front of Daniel Kwan's security team on a public sidewalk and refused to move. She was not a woman who made decisions from fear. She was, however, a woman who was honest with herself. And the honest truth was that Daniel Kwan was already the most important person in her daily life, and she had not done one single thing to stop it. May Kwan materialized on a Thursday night, like a force of nature, in a yellow blazer. She walked into Amara's office, sat down across from her without asking, looked her up and down with frankly assessing eyes, and said, "So you're the reason my brother canceled dinner with the Hargrove family twice this month." Amara blinked. "I don't know what that means." "The Hargroves have a daughter. There's been a long-standing expectation." May tilted her head. "He's blown them off twice, that's new." "I'm his promotions manager," Amara said carefully. May smiled, and it was Daniel's smile, contained, precise, slightly dangerous. "Sure you are," she stood. "For what it's worth, he seems less like a robot lately. That's an improvement." She paused at the door. "You know what he's involved in." "Yes." "And you're still here." "I work for the club," Amara said, "not the other parts." May studied her. "The two things aren't always separable in his world, just know that." She left without fanfare. Amara sat for a long moment in the quiet of her office, listening to the bass from the floor below. The dinner invitation came 4 days later. Daniel appeared in her office at 7 in the evening as she was finishing a post-event report, set his hands flat on her desk, and said, "I'm taking you to dinner tomorrow night." She looked up. "Work dinner?" He held her gaze. "Do you want it to be a work dinner?" The question landed between them, like something dropped from a great height. "No," Amara said quietly, "I don't." He straightened. Something in his face shifted, not the cold professional expression she'd catalogued over the past month, but something underneath it, a current of feeling that moved through his features like heat. "I'll pick you up at 7. Send me your address." When he was gone, she pressed her palms flat on the desk the way he had and breathed carefully for a moment. The restaurant was private and extraordinary, a 12-table Chinese omakase experience that didn't have a sign outside or a listing online. Daniel was clearly known there in a way that made the entire staff move differently, not with fear exactly, but with the particular alertness of people who understand that some presences carry weight. He'd reserved a room in the back. Just the two of them, paper screens on 3 sides, candlelight, a view of a small interior garden that shouldn't have been possible in a Chicago building. "You're starring," Amara said. "You're stunning," Daniel said, with the same neutrality he might use to state the square footage of a property. Like it was simply true, and there was no point in packaging it differently. She felt her face warm despite herself. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not?" "Because she paused. "It's too direct. Most people build up to that kind of thing." "Most people waste a lot of time," he said simply. He poured her tea. "I've learned not to." She looked at him across the table. "What does that mean?" He was quiet for a moment, set the teapot down. "My father died in a restaurant, not unlike this one. He was having dinner with a business associate he trusted, and someone who hated him walked in through the kitchen." He looked at the paper screens around them with a steadiness that came from having sat with that knowledge for 4 years. "I decided that night that I was done pretending about things that mattered. Time is the only currency that doesn't come back." Amara held his gaze. "I'm sorry," she said. I'm sorry that's the thing that taught you that lesson. It should have been something better. He looked at her with an expression she was beginning to recognize, that specific quality of being seen by someone who wasn't expecting it. Tell me something no one knows about you, he said. She considered. I used to sing. Seriously, I was in a semi-professional choral group in college. I had a scholarship for it my freshman year before I switched to social work. She looked at the table. I haven't sung anything since my mother's funeral. I don't know if I'll do it again. Why not? Because it's the thing I did with her. Every Sunday morning. She'd cook and I'd sing whatever was in my head, and she'd critique my pronunciation and we'd argue about it. She exhaled. It feels like it belongs to her now. Like if I take it back, I'm taking something away from her. Daniel reached across the table and put his hand over hers. Not to say anything, just to be there with the weight of what she'd said. She turned her hand over and held his. The food came in courses. Daniel explained each one, sometimes passing her something from his own plate with a naturalness that felt like they'd been doing this for years. She told him things she hadn't planned to say about her mother's laugh, about the specific texture of the grief that had moved into her chest and never fully left, about how she'd once been good at school and planned to change the world through systems work, and now she handed out flyers for $40. He listened the way he did everything, completely, without interrupting, like she was the only sound in the room. Tell me about your father, she said. The real version, not the press release. His jaw shifted. He loved this city. He understood power completely, how it moves, how it concentrates, how it disappears if you don't protect it. What he didn't understand was that some things cost more than they're worth. He picked up his glass. He made an enemy for business reasons. The enemy took it personally. My father thought logic would protect him. A pause. It didn't. Are you like him? Daniel was quiet for a moment. In some ways, not in the ways that got him killed. He looked at her. The people who work for me, their families, their kids, they have health coverage, living wages, a path. My father didn't care about that. He cared about output. His voice was measured, but underneath it she could hear something that had been burning for years. I care about the people. Even while doing illegal things. Even then, he set his glass down. I'm not going to defend everything I do, Amara. Some of it I can't defend. But I do know the difference between building something and just extracting from it. She reached across the table and put her hand over his. It surprised both of them. He looked down at their hands, then up at her. I haven't stopped thinking about you since the day you hit my car, she said. You hit my car, he corrected, but his hand turned under hers and his fingers closed around her palm. Tell me to stop, he said softly. He'd moved somehow without her noticing, standing now, pulling her gently to her feet, his other hand coming up to her face. Tell me this makes no sense and I'll take you home and we'll keep this exactly where it is. Amara looked up at him. The candlelight did something to his eyes, warmed them, softened the glass-cut precision of his face into something that looked like longing. I don't want you to stop, she said. He kissed her. There was nothing tentative about it, no testing, no gradual. It was complete from the first second, like he'd decided and committed and wasn't capable of anything halfway. She kissed him back with everything she had and felt something in her chest loosen for the first time in over a year. When they came apart, both slightly breathless, he pressed his forehead against hers. You understand that this changes things, he said. My world has enemies. People will notice. I know. And you're still here. I'm still here. He exhaled, slow and controlled, like he was releasing something he'd been holding tightly for a very long time. Then you're with me, he said, and I protect what's mine completely, no exceptions. For 3 weeks, Amara existed inside something she hadn't believed was available to her anymore, happiness, straightforward and abundant. Daniel was different in private. Still precise, still measured, but he laughed more easily, cooked her breakfast on Sunday mornings with intense focus like it was a tactical operation, and held her through 2 in the morning on a night she cried about her mother without prompting, not saying anything, just present. He said he loved her on a night they were watching a film in his penthouse apartment, and it came out like something that had been under pressure for weeks, not dramatic, just truthful, the way he said everything. "I've never said that to anyone outside family," he said, eyes on the screen. She put her hand over his heart. "Daniel." He looked at her. "I love you too. Even though you're technically a crime lord, and this is objectively complicated, and my former ethics professor would have a complete breakdown if she knew." Something changed in his face, a warmth, full and unguarded, that she suspected very few people in the world had ever seen. "I'll try not to meet your former ethics professor." She laughed against his shoulder. She should have known, even then, that every moment of warmth like this was building toward a reckoning. That was the physics of his world. Heat didn't come free. The Zhao family had been watching. Victor Zhao was 63, head of the largest Chinese crime syndicate operating out of Milwaukee, and he had a daughter, Cyan, that he'd been positioning toward Daniel for 2 years. 3 formal dinner invitations declined. 2 proposed meetings that Daniel had attended alone made clear he wasn't interested, and left. The narrative in the underworld's gossip network had been that Daniel simply didn't want anyone, that the Ice King ran cold all the way through. Then Amara appeared in his life. The social media transformation at Noir was public. The way Daniel's people talked about her, with a respect that meant something, given who they were, was also public. And when Daniel stopped attending the Zhao family's quarterly networking events, the implication was unmistakable. Victor Zhao requested a meeting about territory disputes. It was a thin excuse. Daniel went anyway, because you don't ignore a man like Victor without reason, and because Daniel was still, at his core, methodical. The meeting was in a private room at a restaurant in Evanston. Victor sat across from him with 2 captains and a stillness that Daniel recognized as the deliberate calm of a man who believed he held the better cards. They discussed territory for exactly 11 minutes. Then Victor set his glass down. "I'll be direct," Victor said. "You've declined Cyan's company 3 times now. My family finds that insulting." "I've been clear about my position on strategic marriages," Daniel said. "Clear," Victor smiled, and it didn't reach anything above his mouth. "I think what you've been is distracted by the black girl you've installed in your club." The temperature in the room did something measurable. Daniel's 2 captains went very still. Victor's men shifted. Daniel said nothing for 4 seconds. "I'd suggest choosing your next sentence carefully." "She's a liability," Victor continued. He genuinely didn't understand the magnitude of what he was doing, or perhaps he did, and had decided he was powerful enough to do it anyway. "Someone from the street. No family, no standing, no understanding of how our world operates. She makes you look vulnerable. The other families are talking." "Let them talk," Daniel said quietly. He stood. "This meeting is over." "We're not finished." "We are." Daniel buttoned his jacket. "And understand this, Victor. Amara is mine. That's not a negotiable subject. The next time anyone in your organization references her in any way, we will have a different kind of conversation. Am I clear?" Victor stared at him with the expression of a man who had spent 40 years being the most dangerous person in every room he entered. "You'd risk everything for a woman you've known 6 weeks." "Without question," Daniel said, and left. In the car home, his head captain Marcus said carefully, "Boss, the Zhaos aren't going to let this go." "I know. If they move against us." "Then they move against us, and we respond accordingly." Daniel looked out the window at the highway lights. "Prepare the security detail. I want someone on Amara at all times when she's outside Noir." He didn't tell Amara that night. He should have. He'd tell himself that afterward many times. He told her 3 days later, when she noticed the 2 men who appeared to be following her at a casual distance during her lunch break in the neighborhood near the club, and came back to his office with fire in her eyes. "There are 2 men outside," she said. "They've been following me for 3 days." "They work for me," Daniel said. "Security." She went very still, "Without telling me." "I was going to tell you. When, after they'd been following me for a week," she set her bag down hard. "Daniel, we don't do things to each other without telling each other. That was the whole point." He stood, I met with Victor Zhao. Who? He told her. All of it, the meeting, what Victor said, the threat embedded in the pleasantness, the implicit promise of future hostility. He watched her process it, watched the fear move through her expression before she could stop it. Because of me, she said. Because of him and his assumptions, not because of you. But I'm the catalyst. She sat down, hands in her lap, staring at the middle distance. Daniel, I'm not worth a war. He crossed the room to her in 3 steps and crouched in front of her so they were eye level. Stop. I'm serious, if people are going to get hurt because of. Stop. He took her hands. Look at me. He waited until she did. You're not collateral, you're not a complication. You are the best thing in my life in 4 years, and I will not pretend otherwise because it's inconvenient for Victor Zhao's marriage plans. You're so stubborn, she said, and her voice broke slightly on the last word. Yes, he brought her hands up and pressed his mouth to her knuckles. I know, tell me you're not leaving. A long pause. She looked at him in the bluish afternoon light of his office. Then she squeezed his hands. I'm not leaving, she said, but you tell me things from now on. You don't make decisions about my safety without telling me. Deal. Deal, he said. She exhaled. I can't believe I'm negotiating terms with a crime lord. You do it very well. She almost smiled. Don't compliment me when I'm trying to be serious. The attack came 9 days later. Amara was alone in her office at 11 at night finishing a vendor contract she'd been putting off. She'd sent Marcus, her evening security, home an hour early because she'd planned to leave at 10 and then hadn't. That would stay with her later, the way one small deviation unraveled everything. The power went out. Not a flicker, total darkness, instant. Emergency lighting clicked on, a deep red glow that turned the familiar space into something unrecognizable. Her phone was in her hand, dialing Daniel, when the door opened. She ran. She got to the hallway before they caught her. 2 men, fast and professional, moving like they'd done this before. She fought an elbow into one man's ribs, a heel brought down hard on an instep, a scream that echoed through the empty building. She marked one of them with her nails. The cloth came over her face from behind. Chemical smell, not chloroform, something else, something faster. She had maybe 4 seconds. She used them to memorize everything she could. Gray jacket on the man she could still see, a logo on his sleeve too dark to read, a specific squeak from the flooring as they moved toward the exit. Then nothing. She woke in a cold building that smelled of diesel and concrete. A warehouse or something adjacent to it. Her wrists were bound behind her to a metal chair. Her phone was gone. Her shoes were gone. The room had 2 windows, both painted over, 3 overhead lights, and a guard stationed near a door to her left who was eating a sandwich and not paying attention. Her first thought was Daniel. Her second thought was, get free. She'd grown up in a neighborhood where being resourceful wasn't optional. She'd taken a self-defense course in college taught by a retired CPD detective who drilled the importance of staying calm and thinking in small, achievable steps. She started on the rope. She worked methodically, ignoring the burn on her wrists, watching the guard in her peripheral vision, timing her movements to the moments when his attention drifted. It took 22 minutes to free her right hand. She just started on the left when the wall came down. Not literally, but the door blew inward with a concussive bang that sent the guard's sandwich flying and brought him to his feet a half-second before 2 of Daniel's men came through at a run and had him restrained against the opposite wall. More footsteps, heavy and rapid, filling the building with the sound of something inevitable arriving. And then Daniel was in the doorway. She had never seen that expression on his face. She'd seen him cold, controlled, professionally dangerous. This was different. This was a man whose control was held in place by a single thread, everything underneath it raw and moving. He crossed the warehouse in seconds and dropped to his knees in front of her chair, his hands going to the remaining rope with a precision that shook slightly at the edges. Are you hurt? His voice was very quiet. Amara, look at me, are you hurt? I'm okay, she said. My wrists are sore, but I'm okay, Daniel. The rope fell. He pulled her into his arms before she finished the sentence. He held her the way people hold things they thought they'd lost, completely, without reserve, both arms locked around her like the alternative was unthinkable. She felt the way his chest was moving, controlled breathing, but barely. "Daniel," she said against his shoulder, "I'm here, I'm right here." He didn't say anything for a moment, just held on. Then he stood, pulling her with him, keeping one hand on her arm as he turned to Marcus. "Safe house, full rotation, no gaps." His voice had changed back, flat, cold, lethal. Two different people in the same body. "The Zhao family moves tonight." "Daniel," she caught his sleeve, "don't do something you can't take back." He looked at her, and she saw it, all of it, the love and the fury running through him simultaneously, too large for his face to contain. "Everything I do is for you now," he said quietly. "That's not reckless, that's just true." He kissed her once, fast and fierce. Then he turned to his men, and the Daniel who loved her stepped back and the other one stepped forward. She let Marcus lead her out of the building as dawn was beginning to suggest itself at the edge of the sky. At the doorway, she looked back. Daniel was standing in the center of the warehouse, giving orders she couldn't hear, surrounded by men who would follow them without question. He didn't look back. She wanted him to. She also understood, in that moment, that looking back wasn't something he could afford. In the car, Marcus sat beside her with the careful stillness of a man who had been through many bad nights and had learned to wait out the aftermath. He handed her a bottle of water without being asked. She drank it. "How long have you worked for him?" she asked. Marcus glanced at her. He was in his mid-40s, heavy-set, with a face that had absorbed a lot of life. 12 years. "Have you ever seen him like that?" "Like what?" "Like tonight, when he came through that door." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "No," he said, "I have not." Amara looked out the window at the pre-dawn city, the streets strange and quiet in the hour before the world woke up. "Is he going to be okay?" she asked. "He will be when he knows you are." Marcus kept his eyes on the road. "That's the truth of it, Ms. Osei. You want my honest read, the man has been operating on pure cold logic for 4 years. You're the first thing he's done that isn't logical, and he'd do it 1,000 times over." He paused. "That's not nothing. In our world, that's just about everything." She didn't say anything to that. She held the water bottle between her palms and watched Chicago pass outside the window and tried to understand the specific shape of the emotions sitting in her chest. Not fear exactly, not relief exactly, but something that combined both and added something else on top, something that felt suspiciously like permanence. Daniel's people moved with the precision of someone who had thought this through before it happened, because he was always preparing for contingencies, because men in his position survived by assuming the worst. He didn't attack the Zhao family's illegal operations. He attacked their legitimacy. Their restaurant licenses came under scrutiny through channels Daniel controlled quietly. Their main import business had its credentials reviewed by an organization that owed Daniel a significant favor. 3 of Victor Zhao's key lieutenants received communications that made them independently decide to seek employment elsewhere. And then Daniel went to Victor personally. In an office building in Cicero at 4 in the morning with 10 men behind him, and the specific kind of stillness that comes when someone has decided they have nothing left to lose and nothing they're unwilling to do. Daniel sat across from a man who suddenly looked smaller than he had 3 weeks ago. "You took something from me," Daniel said. "You wanted to demonstrate that she was a weakness. What you demonstrated instead is that I will burn everything within reach before I let someone use her to get to me. I hope that's been instructive." "Kill me or don't," Victor said. His voice was steady. He was a man who'd run his operation for 40 years. He still had that. "I'm not going to kill you," Daniel said. "That would make you useful, a martyr, a cause, something for your people to organize around. Instead, you're going to move your operation out of this territory. Illinois, all of it. You'll tell your people it was a strategic decision. You'll tell them whatever you need to." He leaned forward. "And if I hear from anyone that Amara Osei was mentioned in any room by any person connected to your organization, we will revisit this moment. And I will not be this measured the second time." Victor looked at him for a long time. You really would destroy everything over her. I already have, Daniel said, and I'd do it again tomorrow. The difference between you and me, Victor, is that you think love is a liability. I've learned it's the only thing that makes power worth having. He stood, he left. The sun was fully up by the time he reached the safe house. Amara heard the door and came out of the living room still in the clothes from the night before, hair loose, eyes that hadn't slept. She looked at him, the blood on his sleeve that wasn't his, the exhaustion at the edges of his face, the way he stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed to come in. She crossed the room and put her arms around him. He exhaled fully for the first time in 8 hours. Is it over? She asked. It's over. The Zhaos are leaving the territory. He tucked her head under his chin. You're safe. And you. I'm okay, now. They stood there in the doorway of the safe house, while morning light came through the kitchen window and filled the space around them with something ordinary and golden. I want you to move in with me, Daniel said into her hair. My building, full security, proper infrastructure, I know it's fast, but I can't. He stopped, tried again. I keep thinking about you alone in that warehouse. I'd like to not repeat that particular experience. Yes, Amara said. He pulled back to look at her. Yes. Yes, obviously yes. I love you and your security team, and I would like to sleep in a bed that costs more than my rent did. She pressed her palm flat against his chest. Also, we're talking about your feelings more. That's a condition of cohabitation. His mouth curved. Noted. I mean it. She tilted her head. Last night scared me too, you know, not just being taken. Watching you walk back into that building, not knowing what was happening to you for hours. That was its own kind of awful, Daniel. He looked at her, something shifting in his expression. I didn't think about it from that direction. No, you were too busy being in charge of everything. She softened it with a small smile. You need to let me worry about you sometimes. That's what this is. Both directions, okay. He held her gaze for a long moment, nodded. Okay. And I'm keeping my office at Noir. I wouldn't dream of taking it. Good. She kissed him once, soft and certain. Take me home, Daniel. 2 months later, Noir was the most talked-about club in Chicago. Amara had rebuilt it from the inside out, not just the social media, but the culture. She'd brought in diverse booking, community events, a monthly showcase for emerging local artists that had generated press in 3 national outlets. The staff had a different energy. So did the clientele. What had been a closed, intimidating room had become a destination, and the revenue reflected it. Daniel stood at his office window on a Tuesday afternoon watching her coordinate a photo installation on the club floor below. She was in a yellow dress, directing a photographer and 2 influencers with the efficient calm of someone who knew exactly what she was doing. She caught him watching and pointed at him in mock accusation, then went back to work. You are absolutely gone, May said from behind him. I know, Daniel said without turning around. May came to stand beside him. She'd started coming to Noir more regularly in the past month. Amara had made her a standing invitation for Sunday brunches, and Daniel had watched his sister, who trusted almost no one, relax incrementally in Amara's company in a way that moved something deep in his chest. The extended family is coming around, May said. Auntie Lynn keeps texting me asking if Amara is coming to the Lunar New Year dinner. She texted me 4 times, Daniel. Auntie Lynn has never texted me 4 times about anything. She's good with people. You're good with statistics. She's extraordinary with people. May watched Amara laugh at something the photographer said, her whole face animated. She's good for you too. You know that, right? Not just good, necessary. Daniel said nothing for a moment. I know. Don't mess it up. Thank you for that precise guidance. May punched him lightly in the shoulder and left. That evening, Amara came to find him in his office and sat in the chair across his desk the way she had on that first day. Except now, she sat the way people sit in places that belong to them. I've been thinking, she said. About a foundation, using Noir's platform and some of the community connections I've built. job training, education access, mentorship for young people who are in the situation I was in a year ago. She leaned forward. I know someone who was 2 weeks from eviction and had $43 in her bank account and happened to get a job offer that changed everything. Most people don't get that offer. I want to create a version of that offer at scale. Daniel was quiet, watching her. I know it's a big ask, she started. Yes, he said. She blinked. I haven't finished. Yes, whatever you need, funding, the venue, contacts, legal structure. Yes. He stood and came around the desk, pulling her to her feet. Your dreams don't require my permission, Amara, but they have my full support, always. She looked up at him. You didn't even hesitate. Why would I? He touched her face. You have one of the best minds I've ever encountered. You see things other people don't. The idea that you would be handing out flyers in 40-degree weather for the rest of your life is an offense against basic logic. He kissed her forehead. Also, you're going to make me look like I have a conscience, which is good for business. She laughed, and the laugh filled his office the way it filled every room she was in. Completely, warmly, like something that had always been supposed to be there. I love you, she said. I love you, he said back. It came easier now. Not without weight, it would always have weight. It was that kind of love, but without the resistance that used to live underneath it. They stood in his office as the city moved outside the window, 20 floors below. All that velocity and noise and ambition, entirely unconcerned with the two people standing still inside it. She'd come to this city alone, broke, grieving, convinced the only thing she had left was her refusal to give up. He'd spent 5 years building walls so complete that he'd begun to believe they were just who he was. Neither of them had been looking for this. It had found them anyway, the way the most important things always do, in the middle of a Tuesday, on an ordinary sidewalk, in the collision of two lives that shouldn't have intersected and couldn't have stayed apart. A flyer girl and a crime lord. A woman who'd survived everything by refusing to let it make her bitter, and a man who'd only ever needed someone willing to see through the stone to the warmth that had been there all along. Not a fairy tale. Too real for that, too complicated, too full of actual danger and genuine grief and hard conversations at 2 a.m. But real love rarely is a fairy tale. Real love is choosing someone on a Wednesday when nothing is dramatic or cinematic, when it's just the two of you and the city outside and the life you're building piece by deliberate piece. Theirs was built on honesty and stubbornness, and an inexplicable amount of Chinese barbecue and one yellow dress on a Tuesday afternoon, and a man at a window who had stopped pretending he wasn't watching. It was, all things considered, enough. It was more than enough. It was everything. And that is the full story of Amara and Daniel. If you made it to the end, thank you. Seriously. You are exactly who we make these stories for. If this story hit you in the chest the way we hoped it would, do us a favor. Hit that like button right now. It takes 1 second and it genuinely helps us keep creating stories like this one. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We post a new romance story every single week. Dark romance, second chance love, enemies to lovers, all of it. Hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one. Drop a comment below and tell me, what was your favorite moment in Amara and Daniel's story? Was it the warehouse rescue? The restaurant scene? That first almost smile? I read every single comment. And one more thing, should we do a follow-up episode? Amara's foundation launch, the Lunar New Year dinner with Daniel's extended family, maybe a proposal storyline. Tell me in the comments. If enough of you want it, it's happening. We'll see you in the next story. Don't go anywhere.